Hey, let's start the show.
For Thursday, October 1st, 2020. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is only a test.
Wow. Okay. I can vibe with that.
That's different. I was waiting for the beat to drop.
Yeah. That was kind of cool. That was a intro theme music for this week's episode created by one of you out there, Jaanus. Thank you for sending that in. We're, of course, going through user-submitted themes for the past 3 months or so. This is our lockdown special, and well done. I think it could use one more revision, but definitely like the staggered arpeggios. You heard him chime in. Jeremy Williams is with us today. Jeremy, how you doing?
Hello, gentlemen. I'm well. Thank you.
Doing well. Looking good. You got your camera working?
So far.
Backup camera just in case.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have a Kishore with us this week. He's been busy, so we got an old colleague, a former colleague of ours, Dan Stapleton. Dan, how you doing?
Pretty good. I have no backup camera, though, so I'm flying without a net here.
I like your setup. For people watching the video, Dan has, it looks like a giant poster, like a wall-hung, wall-mounted, poster of an X-Wing cockpit, but it's actually, that's like your computer monitor.
Yeah. I use just a 65-inch Samsung TV as my monitor, because why not?
God.
I can't tell if you're joking or not.
I am not joking. That is what I use for my monitor. That's what I do all my writing on. Writing and gaming for the most part.
Like scaled at 100% or what?
Yeah, I just no, it's just play in 4K when possible. Yeah.
Jeremy, you were saying?
I was wondering how far away you sit from it.
It was a arm's length, so about 4 feet.
Wow.
I like to fill my. It is 4K.
Who needs VR with a setup like that?
Exactly. I like to fill my whole field of vision.
The most immersive you can get Google Docs or Microsoft Word.
That's right.
Is this a case where you had that? It's like this was a TV that was mounted in your home somewhere, and then you upgraded, and so had a leftover TV, and you need to find something to do with it?
Oh goodness, no! I bought it specifically for this purpose.
I don't know which is worse. But welcome to the show, Dan. I think it's the first time we've had you on. I know you used to listen to the show at least, but for people who don't know or don't follow you on Twitter, Dan, you are the reviews editor. Is that right? At IGN?
Yeah. Executive editor of reviews, yes.
Executive editor of reviews. And we go way back. I think known you for maybe almost 20 years now, I want to say, but all three of us at one point, maybe not even the exact same time, used to work at PC Gamer.
Yep.
And podcasted together then. There.
Yeah, I don't think I've done a podcast with Dan in 15 years. but he used to co-host the PC Gamer podcast back in the day.
Yeah. Jeremy helped us get that off the ground. You had left PC Gamer at that point. You were out in Chicago, but I remember you called up Dan Morris and said, we got to do this new podcasting thing, and I'll produce it for you. Yeah, and that was the start of all of Futures podcasting.
Literally, I have a text record of this conversation with Dan, and Dan's response was, "What is a podcast?"
RSS feeds, shoutcasting.
Exactly.
Right? It was what was it, Yahoo, or someone had one of those streaming services way back in the turn of the century. But so we're all veteran podcasters. Do you still podcast on a regular? Do you guys do an IGN podcast?
We have lots of podcasts. I'm occasionally on them. I'm not a regular fixture on any of them because I have a face for radio and it's all video now. So.
It is indeed all video and all working from home. So presumably, I know IGN's offices in San Francisco, but you guys are all working from home these days, all producing your reviews and videos and everything.
Yep, since March. It has been a change, I don't mind. I don't miss the commute. I'll tell you that. But
yeah,
but it does kind of suck to not have the camaraderie in the office, not be able to just grab somebody and pull them into a show when you have something that is relevant to their interests. But although now we can just, call people up and have them do it from home. So in some ways it's easier.
Is the whole office basically on Slack? And so there's that kind of water cooler. And
There is that, yeah.
Okay, I wondered.
Yeah, like we have a half a dozen. We're stratified over half a dozen different chat channels so there's a bunch of different nonsense conversations going on at all times.
Do you still do morning stand-ups or group
we
calls?
We do, yeah.
Yeah.
Every day at 10 a.m. We use Google Meet for that.
Nice. Well, one of the reasons we wanted to have you on, not just because Shore's not here, but I wanted to have you on for a while to provide some actually informed knowledge and expertise about the upcoming new generation of console launches, talk about, the reviews philosophy and the stuff that you do on a day-to-day basis. IGN, I know that's been a huge passion of yours, things that you did and developed over when we were all at PC Gamer. When I think, did you cover previews? Is that right?
I was briefly in charge of previews, but I eventually moved into reviews. I was in charge of previews and news. I was stuck with the letters section for the longest time. But yeah, eventually became reviews editor there before I left. Yeah.
And then went over, of course, you ran GameSpy when that was still going on. Giving a shout to GameSpy.com.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
This is when the GameSpy, not the service, the editorial site in the was it Planet Quake family of networks?
That had all shut down by then, but yeah, GameSpy it was owned by IGN at that point, along with 1UP. So I was actually the last editor in chief of GameSpy, which like when Ziff Davis bought IGN, they decided, hey, why are we running these parallel sites? It's kind of hard to argue with that logic. I mean, it was a sales strategy to keep the three sites going in parallel, but not necessarily the most efficient thing, depending on how you look at the books, I guess. So they decided to consolidate all of us into IGN. So I moved from being an editor-in-chief to an executive editor, but yeah, I got to focus more on the stuff that I particularly enjoy, which is reviews.
Awesome. Well, we're going to pick your brain more about that stuff later on the show, but now it's time for a segment, which is our top story.
Story this week.
You had the appropriate background for it, and people who read the description for this podcast know that we're going to talk about Star Wars Squadrons. So first of all, Jeremy, I am sorry. I apologize, but you're the only one here of the three of us who have not played the game so far. But that hopefully that will change real soon.
Rub it in, Norm.
You come from a position of curiosity, of everything is potential. It's Christmas Eve for you. Right? Some would argue Christmas Eve, the anticipation is more valuable and it brings more joy and hits those your receptors more than your dopamine than Christmas Day even.
Christmas Eve is very reliable. It is always good. Always good. Christmas Day, kind of a coin toss. You never know what you're going to get.
That's right.
I'm absolutely with you on that. And I get to represent the people here and ask you the questions that you can answer and I can't. I can't wait to hear more about your experience. I've heard a little bit from you. I haven't heard from Dan yet, and hopefully you guys can temper my expectations so that they're not too high. I'm as you know, not a day has gone by since this game has been announced that I haven't thought about it. So
you've had the dreams about it.
I have been very excited about it. I haven't managed to snag a new 3080 card or anything like that to play it on, but I can't wait to play it, and let's get into it.
So as of right now, as this podcast is reviews are online, and Dan, I imagine that you and your team are in the process of still right now finalizing the review, getting all the assets, prepping, because this is having some insight into the review process with EA and the release of this. I didn't, at least on my end, I didn't get access to this game until this week to basically play through it and do some multiplayer.
So we've come up with a workaround for that, actually. So we actually also got it this week. But what we've been doing for the last few years is to put out separate single player and multiplayer reviews. So our reviewer, Tom Marks, who's my deputy at IGN, he burned through the single player campaign the first day. So we were able to turn around a single player review, which is on IGN as you're hearing this, and he loved it. I personally have gotten to play just a couple of missions so far, but I went over his review with him, and it all sounds very impressive for the most part. We gave it an 8.
Oh, nice! Wow, you have the score. Very, very good.
I wasn't even expecting much
No, I mean,
from the single player campaign, given that this is a $40 multiplayer focused title. I thought that the single player stuff would be a tutorial and then you're in and out playing, the multiplayer stuff forever more, even just with bots. But it sounds to me like the single player campaign has more to it. Norm, you were saying there's like 12 missions that could take several hours.
14 missions plus 2 prologue missions. And so I confess I need to finish single player. I'm in like the last 3 missions. So I'm just hours wise, about 8 hours in. And it's tough because they I don't want to say pad it out, and single player doesn't feel padded, but there's a lot of ancillary things you can do between the actual flying the missions themselves. There's not real conversation, but there's like NPC dialogue that you listen to. There's exploring the hangars. There's things you can do. As Dan's kind of filling with his background, but it feels more than way more than just a tutorial. But it does serve that purpose, right? The prologue introduces you to the mechanics, and even through the first half dozen or so missions, they force you into the cockpits of different ships to get you into bombing runs and into your different kind of game modes and weapons, and learning how to tune your ship.
It's definitely the single player campaign design that teaches you how to play. Like it runs you through the basics. And in fact, like EA was very insistent, like you should play through X amount of this before you jump into multiplayer. We did all of it, but they seem to have done a lot more with it than just the basics, and there's a lot of visual variety to it, even though you're always in space or almost always in space. Then there's a pretty elaborate story to it.
Are there assets and elements to the single player campaign that you don't see in the multiplayer components?
I think in terms of the characters, yes, because there are a ton of NPCs. There's animations in the hangar. Like the multiplayers, the point of it is to get you into the maps and into customizing your ship. So, and while you can customize your character to some extent, picking the faces and picking the voice, you're going to be in cockpit. You're not interacting with your 4 squad mates in the same way that you do with the NPC squad mates.
Gotcha.
I played it in VR. I did the thing where they said they'd been working. They had made this with VR in mind since the second week of development, essentially, and the whole game was made to be playable end to end in VR. And for the single player, it has been absolutely so far. The version I'm playing is on PC, of course, and it's via Origin. And so, as I'll talk about in my video, the way you set it up is, it's not launching it from the Steam VR store or Oculus store, but it's kind of a very old school way where you have the VR running in the background and then launch the game and toggle on a VR mode. But it's pretty seamless once you have it there. And it's very comparable in terms of the menus to Elite Dangerous. If you're using a HOTAS joystick, you're using like the hat and the trigger and all the buttons there to navigate the menus, and everything is on the screen. So you don't need to be outside of headset for any of the setup and any of it. You can be in headset basically from the moment the game launches, and that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, as soon as you get in there and toggle it. What headset are you using?
I'm using the Index, and I've done the Index primarily for the field of view and the audio, because sound is such a big part of this game. And you have the Star Wars score, and you have all the pew pews and sound effects. But then I'm also doing it on the Quest 2 as well, just over Oculus Link.
Is it possible to use the native VR controllers to control the game?
I don't think so.
That's a really good question. I don't think so. I think VR only acts as a display. So like in the old school way, back in the old DK1, Oculus DK2 days, where there wasn't a store, you basically launched a Unity app, right? With the Oculus runtime, with all the ways it would split the video feed, the compositor in the background. That's what's happening right now, and it takes your input as gamepad, keyboard, mouse, or joystick.
And do touch controllers no longer emulate as a gamepad to Windows?
Oh, that is a good question. I don't know.
Okay,
I should test that. I'll test that. My review's not done yet, so I will test that for sure. I played a little bit with the keyboard and mouse, and then also with mostly just the HOTAS SciTech X52, and do a bunch of remapping. It's an interesting thing because it's all cross-platform, right? Not only is it flat screen in VR, but it's cross-platform across PC and all the game consoles, including PSVR. And so I could tell the way they design a lot of the HUD elements, the on-screen things, some of the iconography is big, kind of made for TVs and made for maybe PSVR, which isn't to say it's bad. It's just like it's not. They don't. It's like Elite Dangerous. Everything is so granular and so fine. Like this feels a little bit more arcadey in the UI in that sense, but there's a lot of complexity in the controls, and I'm really surprised and impressed by how much they packed into all the shortcuts you could do with a gamepad.
Yeah, it's most of this kind of stuff that you expect that you remember from the old X-Wings and TIE Fighter games. I don't know if they've got shield facings. Can you boost forward and backward shields? I didn't get that far.
Oh, in this game, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. I didn't. I was just playing Imperial stuff so far, and they don't have shields. So, but they have all the granule levels of boosting to your weapon shields and engines, which I so missed that in all the Star Wars games like that have come before. Like Battlefront 2 had a little bit of it, but it was very like on or off. Whereas this you can, and it's actually a setting in the systems in the preference menu where you can change it from the kind of the simple like everything into one or a granule mix. So casual players will start off doing that, but as you want to start really fine tuning, you can say you want your engine just a little bit boosted.
And that's the balance of it all, right? That's like the balance, not even just of gameplay, the balance of how much simulation you want in this versus how effective that granular tuning is for single player or multiplayer gameplay. Like you could get by without any of that, which is very basic, all power to shields, all power to weapons, all power to thrusters, and get by and complete the single player, no problem. But if you want to feel more immersed in that world and kind of like use your toggles or press the keyboard shortcuts, I feel that adds to the play, the role playing of being in the cockpit of the ship.
Given that this is primarily a competitive game, what interface do you think is going to be the preferred, controller for Star Wars Squadrons?
Oh man, I think VR is a no-brainer if you want to be the most competitive, just because you've got a better field of view. Like you can look up through the canopy of an X-wing and see a TIE fighter fly over your head. You just can't do that with a conventional screen. Like in every flight sim I've played in VR, it's just like I can't really go back to not having that ability to look through the canopy.
Well, the canopy is interesting because it's pretty shrouded both by the design of when you're in a TIE fighter, the window.
Yeah, it's very forward facing.
It's not expansive, right? It's like, and this is by design. It's both because that's how a TIE fighter is designed, and also because of comfort. If you're in VR, you want to have more cockpit because that grounds you into the relative motion rather than all the yaw that you would get in space for nausea. And you can turn on vignetting and turn off vignetting and that kind of stuff. There's no snap turning, for example, in the spaceship. It's just like real time turning. But I found. This might be controversial, and I've been kind of wrestling with myself. I think VR is absolutely the best in terms of immersion and like playability. And yeah, you can, if you're playing on a flat screen, use a shortcut to look up and look down. And that's, I think, very cumbersome because that's an abstraction, right? But in terms of the actual flight and targeting, I think keyboard or mouse is going to give you an edge.
Better than HOTAS?
Yeah, because you think of the HOTAS, the actual stick. There's a little. It's not 1-to-1, right? There's a slight delay. It's simulating space physics of like HOTAS. Flight sticks are made for the physics of airplanes in the real world, right? And if we wanted perfect 1-to-1 control of 6 degrees of movement, you would actually use a motion controller, or like a mouse gives you much more fine granular and fast control, moving from like point XY coordinate here to XY coordinate there. And it's the old, point and click is better than using a thumbstick on a gamepad. Well, HOTAS is basically a big thumbstick that you're you're moving around. And so I find with the HOTAS, I'm more immersed because I feel like I'm flying this thing. But in terms of aiming, I'm often overcompensating, or I'm fighting against it a little bit.
I might be confused about how you are aiming then, because I think of aiming as being, directing the craft in the right direction and leading your target in firing at the right time. It sounds to me like you're pointing at the target.
You're pointing your craft, so it's not split off like some VR games where you have head look as your reticule, and the craft can be independent of that. Elite Dangerous has some of that for their their charted weapons. Here, your center of your cockpit is your reticule, but there are fight physics, right? So you can drift, you can turn. There's some looseness to the handling. So you're saying handling is a real thing.
The mouse controls the pitch and the yaw of the craft.
Yes.
Okay.
And the mouse, the only thing it doesn't give you is, the mouse controls, I think, pitch and roll, and not pitch and yaw, or depends on how you have it set up. You get the extra degree of movement if you have a stick that does yaw, of course, because then you can do roll, pitch, and yaw, and that's real nice. And yaw is always going to be a little slower than your roll, just because these are fake flight physics in space. But I find the mouse, I was able to be more precisely get the reticule onto the enemy than moving the throttle.
Wow,
at least faster.
Yeah, well, I've been playing, briefly with the gamepad, just an Xbox gamepad hooked up to my PC. So just because that's like vehicle games like that where I want to be able to pull up and point down, like that feels more natural to me with a mouse than a mouse pointing kind of thing. And like trying to do any sustained turns, like you have to pick up the mouse and keep doing that. So that is a little bit too immersion breaking for me for a flight sim. I'm willing to put up with a little bit of imprecision for that.
Oh, I mean, immersion is exactly like you're going to have the best immersion with a gamepad, with a HOTAS, with a throttle. That's my preferred way to play the single player, and even multiplayer. I think I don't want to be feeling like I'm moving a mouse to control a spaceship, but you are moving a cursor essentially. The ship is the center reticule is a cursor, and you're just going to be able to move that more precisely with the wrist movements of a mouse than you are trying to imagine moving a mouse cursor with a stick.
That's funny. It's funny that mouse. If you're right about that, it'd be interesting to see what the the best players use. But if mouse and keyboard is the preferred device, I mean, how appropriate for a game that is such an homage to some of the most classic PC only games, of all time. I went back and tried to play, I guess it was X-Wing, on my 46, which I still have hooked up to a monitor. And I realized I had no idea how to play, and the game doesn't tell you. Like it requires you to have the manual in order to learn how to fly those craft. Yeah. I can't wait to see what the user-friendly version of that is.
One of the things that's so impressive, especially in VR, is the cockpit designs, the detail of the cockpits, the lighting they did. It's very Star Wars-y. I mean, so much, even when you're in the hangar and you're just like customizing your cockpit or looking around, this made me feel like I was back at Galaxy's Edge. Like I was in the theme park, with their recreation of an Imperial hangar or of a Rebel base. And then when I was in that, in the X-Wing or the A-Wing, it felt very much like I was on a Disneyland ride in terms of the authenticity and how much detail they put in front of me. The flashing lights and the hard dramatic lighting.
I was so impressed by the rays of light streaming in through the canopy and just like illuminating the controls as I turned. It's the lighting in this game is fantastic.
Yeah,
like
and
Dice
it's
Dice
not
knows what
realistic
it's doing.
either, right? Like in the vastness of space, it should all be dark, right? When astronauts go even like close, if you're on the dark side of the moon, if you're on a space shuttle and the Earth is blocking the sun, all you have the light is basically like the instruments. But in a very true to Star Wars way, all the incidents, all the combat happens in a star system. There's going to be a star, and it's going to cast this hard light on you. And then when you see like the struts of the X-Wing, right, the frame of the cockpit kind of cast as you're doing a roll, like that feels very much like classic Star Wars.
The sound is also exceptional. Like just not just like the sound straight out of the movies, but like you notice when you turn up the power to your weapons, there's a different sound.
Yeah,
like that's so cool, and
Yeah.
it all sounds so authentic.
Do all the different ships have different sounds for that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think so.
Like all 10?
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe. Actually, I'm not sure between the weapons, but definitely all the ships have different, like a different ambiance.
Okay.
Like their cockpits are different. I know, the spatial sound design, the UI is different in terms of the location of the things. One of the favorite things is it the Y-Wing? I think there's one. No, I think it's only an Imperial ship. Yeah, the TIE bomber. It's like a wider cockpit because it's a two-seater, and it's like a different dashboard completely, and it just feels like it's a narrower window. And so every ship has its own flavor of like what it feels like to sit in there, and that's something that VR takes just great advantage of. Like turning around, you can see some of them have little back windows, so you can just kind of look out the back if you really wanted to. You can see the astromechs, of course, if you're on the Rebel side. Yeah, it's just I don't know if it's bumped up detail for VR specifically, but it feels like it feels made with VR in mind.
What about the flight mechanics and the the shield power and all of the different capabilities of the different craft? Do they feel like really individual and unique, or is it all just sort of different graphics?
Each ship has different handling and different speeds, but all the interface for how you're managing that is the same. Okay. Although the Imperial ships, most of them don't have shields.
In terms of the power-ups, right? Like one of the big selling points was to add to longevity of this game, make it feel like you can customize your ship as you unlock these upgrade points, and then you basically build out your loadout. You can switch for every ship, the weapon, the primary weapon, the hull, the engines, the shields if you have them, and one of 3 slots for a power-up, passive power-up or active power-up, which is a missile, some type of deterrent, or some type of repair. And those definitely feel different. Like I'll give you an example. Like there's a TIE Interceptor, which is the equivalent to the A-Wing. It's it's a very nimble fighter. It's supposed to be very fast, not very strong, but very maneuverable. But the way I did one session, I customized it with custom engines and custom weapons, and basically turned it into a bomber almost. And I had the form factor of the Interceptor, but my loadout was completely different, and I made it slow and and clunky because of the way I had done the loadout. So there's a lot of different ways to tune it, and I think people are going to be sharing their favorite loadouts.
And all of those unlockables they're unlockables. They're not available as in-app purchases.
Yeah.
How long do you think it will take you to unlock everything?
Well, that's a really good question. I think it's stacked. That's where, because there's only basically 4 or 5 hours of multiplayer time where the stuff could be unlocked for your account, and I think they had double XP on. That's not something I can give a really good gauge of at this point.
Do you get the sense that it's kind of game-changing unlockables? Like, are you going to need those in order to compete?
I think you're going to need those to play the best way you can play, and I don't think it's going to take a long time for you to get. If you read through all the unlocks, and because they're not tiered where you need to get unlock 5, you need 1, 2, 3, and 4. You just need that 1 point to unlock it. If you get 5 unlock points, half a day of play or something, you can unlock everything you want for that one ship you always want to fly, and for those 5 compartments. Yeah. There are cosmetic upgrades. You play rank games, they're gonna match you 5v5, and you'll be able to change your helmet, your decals on the ship, the hologram that pops up, that can be like a bobblehead on your ship, and you can have there's 5 different little unlockable holograms that you can have just pop up.
But the other players aren't holograms or anything on your dashboard or anything, right?
Yeah, you're just kind of floating HUD,
Gotcha.
names or comm pictures.
You said that some of the crafter have a co-pilot seat. Could you imagine if the potential for adding co-op into this game, or do you think that that's an impossibility?
I think that's not within the scope of what they want to do with this game. And I think the thing people probably want more, because this isn't a microtransaction based game. This is a spend $40, you get what you pay for is what you get. The hope is that, there'll be a chance for expansion packs. You'll pay $20 for a map pack, 5 maps or something.
Give me a B-Wing. Give me a B-Wing.
Yeah, give me new ships like that. But like the whole game changing way for you to play multiplayer, that feels like a big code rewrite for them.
And yet I want it.
Yeah, me too. And,
I bet it wouldn't be all that hard for them to do. Just tie two multiplayer players together, and just a little bit over in the model. But like balancing that, I think would be tricky, because you suddenly got the bombers suddenly have 2 people firing at you. Although they're slow and clunky, but they've already balanced it to be flown by one person. So
exactly.
Yeah, I think it would take a big rework, and then like, can you fly a bomber with just one person, or do you need 2 people to fly it? A bunch of questions like that can get messy.
Yeah, I mean that would be a perfect way to play like split screen, right? With no latency, and have a second controller help you with something. But yeah, balance is the problem, right? Like they're not making a big simulator. It's not Elite Dangerous where they can have a big expansion pack and add multi player in one ships. This is all made for 5v5.
I forget. Does a Y-wing have a gunner seat? I think it does.
The Y in the back?
Yeah,
I see one right behind you.
You can look at the picture of the Y-wing.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's yeah.
I think it does.
Yeah. There's the U-wing, from Rogue One. That's the support ship. You have the TIE Reaper, and TIE Reaper is the equivalent of that. But it's your classic Star Wars ships, and it's one of those things.
Go ahead. You were asking before you got to play multiplayer if you'd be able to see tracked heads in other ships in your squadron if you're playing in VR. Is that a thing?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think they don't identify people who are playing in VR, and in fact, you can't even say I don't want to play with people who are playing with VR headsets. All you can do is say I don't want cross-platform, or I do want cross-platform.
Oh.
But you can't. There's no identifier for this player is playing with VR, with keyboard mouse, or with a HOTAS.
Got it.
So I don't think they move those heads.
Yeah, and the HOTAS those are compatible with both console versions as well. So
yeah, you plug USB and they have like a list of ones they've tested with. Although, like I said, configuring it to your specific, the way you want to play the game, is going to be a big part of it. Like, for example, the stick I have has 2 hats for it, right? Which easy access to power distribution, and I use it for my power ups. But like for shields, forward power to forward shield versus power to rear shield, I actually like using a toggle, like a switch for that, because in my head that's what the X-wing pilot would be doing to switch to shields, and that's not maybe efficient in terms of easy shortcut. I have to take my hand off of the stick to move that switch up and down, but that's adding to my fun and my immersion to the game.
I think the one thing I'm struggling with the gamepad controls right now is that the throttle is controlled on the left stick up and down, and just I'm still getting the hang of it. So I keep trying to like turn with, because I think side to side on that is roll, right?
Yeah.
So like I'm trying to roll and I accidentally stop because I pulled down to the side. And it's like, oh, now I'm a sitting duck. So I've just got to get the hang of that.
Yeah, basically the right stick you have to think of as a mini flight stick, and then using shoulder buttons for your yaw turns, which a classic way they control those. Drifting, I still haven't gotten the hang of. That was a big thing that was in the game. They teach it to you, and I think I lucked into being able to drift. That's using boost and then braking and doing a hard yaw or hard roll or yaw turn. It lets you kind of turn around immediately. It's also not essential.
One of the most frightening things from a VR standpoint, and you said that you didn't experience any motion sickness playing in VR.
No motion sickness. I did play it at 120 hertz, and it's one of those where I had the graphics maxed out, running 150% super sampling on the Valve Index, and it ran smoothly on a 2070 Super. So you're not going to need a 3080 card to play this. 2060, 2070 is going to be fine. It's optimized for, across multiple platforms. So it's not like, the engine is solid. But it's one of those where I'm going to start experimenting with 144 hertz, because the thing that I am noticing is as I'm doing these fast turns, I want more frames. like I want to see less not judder, but less of like the ghosting of some of the frames as things are moving real fast across the front of the ship.
Hopefully Oculus can unlock that 90 hertz link on Quest 2 ASAP.
There's some really cool scale stuff too. Like you're definitely flying up to Star Destroyers, and you're like Poe Dameron does in the beginning of Last Jedi, like flying right on top of a Star Destroyer, shooting those turrets, and then doing a drift and turning around, and so you're doing real close, and so like you can get up close, you can navigate around asteroids. It feels really, really good.
Yeah, I think those drifts are going to be much more important in multiplayer when you've got somebody on your tail.
Oh my god, yeah. Being competent in single player is not. I learned very quickly. People in multiplayer are going to be really, really good, and so they're not doing like a server browser system. It's all auto match made, and so you pick your X number of friends up to 5 people, create a party, and then they'll pair you with another group
squadron,
of 5,
if you will.
Yeah.
Oh, so you can't play against another group of friends?
No, you cannot, because they do power matching. So if they'll the way they explained it, I think if you have like a group fewer than 5, a group of 2 or 3 or 4, then they'll match you with another group that has that set number in their party and playing with the same number of randos. But it's not like 10 people can say, I want to always play with each other.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions, Jeremy? I know you want to save some of the surprises. We're not going to talk about story stuff. You guys should play it and get through it. But yeah, you can get through the story if you hammer through it in about a day.
You'll never guess who is whose father.
You haven't done much to lower my expectations. I mean, an 8 is pretty great from IGN, and
it means great. Yes,
and you have said nothing negative, Norm. So I'm gonna have to do my own lowering of my expectations and just keep them in check, because I really hope to enjoy this one.
I mean, part of me was the whole time playing was like, how is this $40? Like, one, I'm having a lot of fun. There's a lot of I'm playing the single player. I'm like just like shouting off things from Star Wars, giving off I'm role playing the whole time. It's cheaper than a Disneyland ticket, and it feels like you're getting your money's worth.
Norm, how many times did you say, now this is pod racing?
The first time I drifted. Yeah. Finish that drift. Now that's pod racing. A lot of stay on targets. Okay, so that's our Squadrons talk. We're going to move on to our next segment. Let's talk about some pop culture. Hey everyone, Norm here. Before we continue on, I want to let you know that This Is Only a Test this week is made possible with support from Eufy. With a unique focus on privacy protection, Eufy Security offers an integrated home security ecosystem that focuses on smart technologies, AI, and unmatched battery life. Eufy 2 Pro is the latest wire-free home security system from Eufy. That's EUFY. With a 365-day battery life, you can avoid frequent interruption to charge the battery and enjoy up to 365 days per charge, or up to 3 years in standby mode for either indoors or outdoor use. You can live stream and record footage in crystal clear 2K resolution, so you can see exactly what is happening in and around your home. Eufy Cam 2 Pro is a one-time purchase that combines security with convenience. There are 0 hidden costs. Plus, you get 16 gigabytes of local storage for storing 1 year of recordings and military-grade encryption data security. It works with Google Assistant and Amazon's Alexa for seamless hands-free operation as well. And Eufy Cam 2 Pro is ready for any weather and built to withstand the elements. Visit your local Best Buy or bestbuy.com to purchase Eufy Cam 2 Pro. Again, that's EUFY Cam 2 Pro. Or you go to their website, eufylife.com, EUFYLIFE.com, to learn more about Eufy Cam 2 Pro. And now back to the show. We'll get through this relatively quickly, but start off with some MCU news. Sam Jackson has been confirmed to take part. Now, it's not necessarily a Nick Fury show, but it sounds like he signed on to reprise the role of Nick Fury in future Disney Plus TV show. So they've had a lot of success with at least the trailer for WandaVision. That was the most watched trailer for any streaming show ever. I think 54 million views in like the first weekend. So they're putting a lot of money in that. And there's the Hawkeye show. There's the Winter Soldier and the Falcon. Exactly. And She-Hulk. They announced the casting for She-Hulk as well. It's a way for, I think,
there's a Loki show coming too.
And what show?
Loki.
That's right. So they're getting these, these actors that are familiar, and bringing them to these long form stories, which are still big risks for them because they're going to spend $150 million on some of these shows across 10 episodes. But also it's a way for them to introduce new characters. And one of the new characters, and prepare them for maybe a cinematic debut, build a relationship with that Disney Plus audience, and they have cast also Ms. Marvel. So this is a teenager who has kind of super strength powers. This is Kamala Khan, and she's a New York-based superhero. I haven't read too many of the comics, but it's basically a younger hero, spunky. She's one of the main characters in the Avengers video game. Right?
Is she not stretchy like she is in the game?
She is. I mean, I don't know how they're going to portray her in the TV show, but in the comics, yes. She's
and in the game,
the big hands, very strong, very spunky, and they've cast her. The actress is a newcomer named Iman Vellani, and people are very happy about this. I think I trust Marvel and Marvel Studios and developing characters and giving them a place to shine on big and small screen. And so that's just more good news for Marvel fans.
And kudos for not whitewashing it somehow.
Yeah. And they'll probably unveil a way to tie in with the other MCU shows or characters. We're going to get a lot of younger heroes. The Passing of the Torch Hawkeye show is supposed to be about teaching a younger Hawkeye. And so maybe these kids will form their own little mini Avengers, which has happened in the comics before, the Young Avengers.
Yeah, and at a certain point, like it would be really weird for Nick Fury to not show up on all those shows. Like he's such an integral part of all of those movies that all these things are based on, that it wouldn't make any sense for him to just be, they'd have to explain like, oh, he's off, somewhere else.
He's off in space.
As a casual fan, I'm kind of wondering why this even made the news, because like I had to try to remember, did he die in the movies? And so people are excited he's coming back or what? But Dan's absolutely right. He's just a part of the universe, and you'd be surprised if he didn't show up.
I think people are surprised because he has not had his own show. He's always been a supporting member. And also for the layperson, there's been confusion about the S.H.I.E.L.D. organization, because you had 7 seasons of the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which had very tenuous connections to the Marvel films, ended up having no connection whatsoever to the events of the Marvel films, but you had shared cast. You had some of the supporting cast from the movies.
Sam Jackson did show up in there at one point.
At one point, right, exactly. And so, the logical assumption that some people may make is that is this more S.H.I.E.L.D., but it sounds like it's just Nick Fury, and last we did see of him, he was in space with some Skrulls doing something. The prevailing rumor for comic book fans is that he's creating the space version of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is called SWORD. So you have a sword and a shield. It's an acronym again. And I don't think this will be a space show, though, because that's kind of a different price point, different type of special effects needed for that. Moving on, some movie news. There's long rumors that Sacha Baron Cohen had made a Borat film, film 1, and it turns out, yes, he did film 1, and Amazon picked up the rights to distribute it. And so they will be coming out with the Borat movie right before the election, and the end of this month, I believe, or very beginning of November.
He filmed it this year.
Yeah.
Like right after the sanctions, or not sanctions, but the restrictions on filming were started to be lifted, they jumped on that and shot as quickly as possible and as discreetly as possible, because he's obviously, he doesn't want people to know who he is. And it's very hard for him to do that to begin with. If word got out that he was shooting another film, it would be very difficult.
Yeah,
there were a couple of instances where he was like, there was some rally where he was like got managed to get up on stage and was singing some really racist stuff, and they eventually like kind of caught like the event runners caught on and kicked him off, but he got the crowd singing along to him in kind of a throw the Jew down the well kind of reprise. So I thought he was going to do just another like season of the show he did for like USA, where I forget if it's called This Is America or something like with About America, which was just a bunch of new characters. But he's gone back to Borat, which everyone loves Borat.
Maybe there's been enough time since that movie came out that people don't remember it. And I was surprised that they could get away with filming this without people realizing what was going on.
Yeah, it's like they have to get people so oblivious that they have never heard of Borat, which a lot of his targets. Yeah, I could believe they hadn't heard of Borat.
It's been 14 years.
Wow.
People are still doing the people are still doing the voice.
Pop culture icon, I guess. Last bits, LA Comic-Con, kind of disappointing. They announced that they would be holding an in-person convention in Los Angeles come December. Now, part of me thinks that this is just the press release they had to say so that they didn't have to give back whatever, contractual obligated deposit they made or guarantee they made with the venue or the hotels, and that they're then waiting on the cat and mouse game of the state telling them they can't hold the convention, and so their insurance would cover that. But I don't think it's a good idea. I think by December that's not going to be a great time for folks to gather in large groups in a city like Los Angeles.
Nope.
Indoors. Yeah.
I think that's kind of a given. Yeah, like there's got to be something else going on there, because there's got to be massive insurance concerns on like what if everybody gets coronavirus, like that they would absolutely be liable for that unless they make people sign it away. And boy, I don't know if that would even work.
Yeah, waivers. I mean, people should know. And so this is kind of a PSA for people in that area or considering going. Like, it's not worth the risk. Let's, things aren't going to sell out there. It's not worth, the exclusives or whatever. Like we want to see people. Yes, we want to celebrate pop culture. We want to have opportunities to meet with our friends, but the remote events have been working so far, and wait a couple more months, see how things look like next year. This definitely feels like not a serious announcement to me. And then finally, there was a virtual event for Hasbro fans last week, and they announced their newest crowdfunding campaign. It's kind of a pre-order campaign, but this one comes straight out of The Mandalorian. It's the Razor Crest as a scaled model playset, much like they did the Jabba's Barge, which if you haven't tracked it, they sold at Jabba's Barge, I think, for $500. It goes on eBay for like thousands of dollars because it's so limited. They love the the action figures that came with it. Anyone who got in on it, like, it has high resale value. I don't know that'll be the case if the marketplace can be flooded, but over 8,000 people have backed this so far. It's $350, and it is scaled for 3.5-inch figures from the Hasbro Star Wars universe, and it's from The Mandalorian.
And you're going to get one as an investment?
I'm going to get one as a chance to maybe paint it, because The Mandalorian, for the show, they made a miniature Razor Crest for film motion control sequences. It was one of those things that Jon Favreau really wanted to do. And so they got the old ILM model maker, John Goodson, out of, not retirement, but they hired him to put one together with 3D printed parts, and they molded and casted it. And the ship itself is very metallic. It has this like reflective aluminum look, but dirty. And so it would not be difficult to do a highly reflective metallic airbrush finish or some type of coating to make it look like that filming miniature, because they're roughly the same size, about 2 feet.
This is your best investment since Bitcoin, Norm.
Oh, don't, oh God. You had that's an old wound, Dan.
Yep.
That's an old wound. And that's just a wound because the investment did turn out to be fantastic. I just sold too early.
Not as fantastic as it could
Not
have
as fantastic as it could have been. The gambler's remorse. Didn't sell as high as I could have. I walked away too soon. All right. That does it for pop culture. Let's move on. Of course, let me pull up the music cue, but let's move on to technology news. Here we go. Nope, here it is. We know there are a bunch of Google phones announced today. We're going to hold that conversation for next week when Kishore's back. But we did want to talk about the big Amazon Alexa event and a devices event, the big annual one where they announce a bunch of weird stuff. This is where in past years, the microwave was announced, the wall clock was announced. They, of course, had new form factors for all their smart speaker devices. I'm not going to say the name of them. But maybe most notably are two products. One, a cloud-based game console called Luna. Dan, what do you know about this?
Not a ton. I mean, just what they showed at the event, but they haven't given press access to it yet, so we haven't dabbled in it. But I think the most, I mean, it looks very much like Stadia, like xCloud, like PlayStation Now in terms of functionality. I think the most exciting part of it is the pricing, which I don't have in front of me, but I understand it's considerably cheaper than
$6 a month.
Right. So, and it's I think you can like subscribe to Ubisoft or subscribe to EA or whatever kind of like channels. I believe that's how it's set up. So you get the $6 a month, and then you upgrade from there to whichever service you want from whichever publisher. So that's a
baseline subscription that gives you a base level mix of games that they've partnered with and probably paid for. And that's a growing list. But then you then purchase from individual publisher channels, access to the license to play new games played remotely.
And you need the controller, which is a $50 investment, and it's a wireless controller that connects directly to the cloud.
Much like the Stadia controller.
Yeah.
Right. They're hoping to have 100 games available during beta. It's going to launch in October. And it is a partnership initially with Ubisoft. So, games like Far Cry 6, Assassin's Creed, new one, Valhalla, and Immortals, Phoenix Rising. And then it will work on iOS, but only through the web browser.
Ew.
So they're getting around the App Store, around paying Apple any type of fee. The current spiffs between, Microsoft and Apple, as well as Epic and Apple in terms of the cut required and cloud services being supported natively in the App Store without individual app approval. And so this will be, I don't know why. Taking a step back, I'm not exactly sure why Amazon wants to be in the space. I know they have the competitive advantage of Twitch, being one of their services and maybe integration with that was something Stadia never really was able to tap into with YouTube as an integration. So, but I don't know if that's what people want. Like
everybody's trying it,
unproven thing.
Amazon is a public company. They need to keep trying new things. They've got AWS in their back pocket. Why not? I mean, it makes perfect sense to me. I just haven't seen a service yet that I want to subscribe to.
I was kind of surprised that they didn't make it part of Twitch. I mean, Twitch is already kind of in the business of selling games, and based on what people are playing. But the ability to just have people jump into games as they see them playing it, which Stadia has to some degree.
To some degree. That was the promise, right? Like, I think you're right. Twitch is such a strong brand and so well associated and well liked by gamers, and also with the failures, the shutdown of its competitors, of Mixer, right? That you have this huge opportunity for people to not only watch, but a subset of those, if they're paying for a subscription, to then play the games themselves and start participating in broadcasting. It just makes everyone more of a Twitch streamer.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised they didn't at least very closely align those brands. Say hey, here's the Luna controller and the Luna service that you Twitch Luna that you subscribe to. But it seems like it being marketed as a totally separate thing, which I wonder is that them playing it safe because they know that maybe it's going to be hard to get this off the ground and they can always relaunch it later as part of Twitch if this doesn't take off.
I think that's just, I would chalk that up to organizational structure and how these departments work. And Twitch operates even as a subsidiary of Amazon with its own engineers, its own P&L, its own product pipelines. And this probably is more spin off of AWS, which while they share backends, this comes off of that team.
Right.
The new Echo devices They're the standard Echo and the Echo Dot are now spherical. I don't know if I'm very curious to hear what they sound like because I've been an owner of almost every Echo device, and the only one that sounds any good to me is the big guy. I forget what they call it, the Pro, or not the Plus.
Studio
that sounds right. Yeah. And I don't expect this new $100 Echo to sound that good. I'm curious why they went with the Sphere. If it's aesthetics only, okay. The one for kids looks adorable. You can get it like either a panda or a tiger. But I don't know why they went with they converted the standard Echo to the Sphere, but they went ahead and did it.
I'm sure they get like some speaker performance boost out of that shape. But like if it's exactly the same, like why do it? Or if it's not any better, then why do it?
Yeah, exactly.
Big data is not only terrifying but adorable.
The only thing that I've ordered from this whole event is the new Eero device. So the Eero announced a new line of Wi-Fi 6 devices that range anywhere from like $150 to $600, depending on if you want to get like the Pro version or the standard version, and how many units you want to get, 1 or 3. And Wi-Fi 6, the Pro version, I got because it's going to replace my current first gen Eero Pro system, and this is supposed to deliver theoretically a gigabit per second over Wi-Fi, which is the same connection I have to the internet. So bring it on. I can't wait to test that out. I don't expect it to be that fast, but even if it's half that fast, it'll be miraculous.
That's a big gamble, Jeremy, to assume that the phone that you're going to buy this year will support that in all the bandwidth and all the radios.
Honestly, like I expect the phone to support it, but if at the very least, I'll be set for when it does. And the Quest 2 is supposed to have Wi-Fi 6 capability. We obviously haven't been able to test that yet.
Not necessarily all the full bandwidth of Wi-Fi 6.
Right.
Wi-Fi 6 is an umbrella depending on how your radio arrangement is.
Yeah, and even the lower version of the Eero 6 only supports half that. It's half a gigabit.
Exactly. It does start at $90, I believe, if you just want an extender. And it's one of these things, like they keep on making money from them because it's obviously a problem that is not solved within households, and the technology keeps on improving. But I look at, they're not cheap, and people buying them, who bought an Eero 2 years ago, they're talking about like a $300 potential upgrade, depending on how big your space is, to get, yes, faster internet, but then also, I guess the target customer is someone who's going to have a new phone, a new laptop, who has the supported radios to make the most of that. But they all kind of stack on each other. So that's the good thing.
Honestly, with kids, and I have 2 doing class at home, trying to stream Zoom all day long, and a signal drops out, they have to relocate to a different room. The more I can do to avoid that kind of problem these days, the better. And I know I'm not alone.
Yeah. And then the last thing they announced, this is the thing I thought you said you pre-ordered, but it's the Ring device, and it's a security camera with a drone.
I'd say it's a drone with a security camera.
It is a drone. It's a drone with a docking station, $250. You plot your path for the drone, a route around your house, and then you can set it to go on that route. And it has a camera so you can spot things like windows or your oven or your pet bowl, whatever it is you want to spot. And I guess it makes some sense because inside most people's houses, you don't have variable wind, and that drone technology is stable enough with the tracking to align itself. It's basically your air Roomba, but it doesn't do any cleaning.
It does dusting.
Very, very light dusting. Air circulation.
I love the promotional video for this because there's an intruder who sees this tiny drone flying towards him, and he turns around and flees. He couldn't possibly do anything about that.
Well, he probably thinks it's got the laser or something.
Right.
Like every time we've seen a drone like that coming toward us in the movies, it's going to kill you.
I think it's fantastic, and it says it's designed to be loud, like they had any alternative.
Yeah. I think they called it security you can hear.
Right.
Oh, God.
Or privacy. It's privacy you can hear.
Right. Privacy. Your cats are going to want to swat it down.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, they're going to take that thing down.
Yeah, it's not going to be difficult. I wonder if you can fly it in a propeller guard mode off for maximum threatening propeller damage.
The Echo Show 10 now is like Jibo, where it has a screen that will turn and face you no matter where you are in the room, 360 degrees. I think that's interesting technology. I wish that it wasn't strictly an Eero device. Like I wish that it was a screen I could AirPlay from my phone in order to FaceTime people. That kind, if it was, and it just used the optical tracking to keep me in frame, no matter what the content was. That'd be very cool. So because we don't use an Echo Show for anything else, we tried one in the kitchen, didn't want it. I don't plan on buying this, but it's neat that kind of technology is entering the marketplace. I like seeing robots in the kitchen. Let's do more of that.
Yeah, that one has a security function as well, because it can just like pan across the room and look for goings on if like periodically if you're away from home.
It's a trade-off between the mechanical complexity of having an extra motor and turning a screen, or just using a wide-angle lens and then cropping in to where the text faces, which is what I believe the Facebook device does for video chat. And that, I think, does it for text. We were gonna ask you a bunch of questions, Dan, about the reviews, but I think we're running out of time, and we covered some of that in the beginning.
So you're saying I have to come back at some point? You
have to come back at some point. But right now, let's move on to our last segment, which is, for this week, VR.
The VR Minute. Virtual reality this week.
Well, there's only one real thing to talk about. HP gave an update on the Reverb G2. It's going to ship for those who pre-ordered early November, so a couple weeks after the launch of the Quest 2. Jeremy, how do you feel about that?
I feel fine with it. I still have my G1, and the G2, while a nice improvement over all of that, it's the same resolution. So I'll be happy using this, and then I'll enjoy the incremental updates to the G2. No problem with that. I hope that that the improvements that they've made since the version that you have are noticeable even to you.
Yeah. And that's what I'm curious about, because I don't have the final, the molds and the final injection molded plastic, the form factor, the comfort, the minor tweaking of audio drivers. These are all things that can enhance experience, and the optics are my biggest question. Because having used that Quest 2, the wide sweet spot on the Quest optics, even though the G2 is that much sharper, it's not as the one that I have, the pre-production model, just does not have a giant sweet spot.
They said that they managed to lower the persistence of the display too, so that should help a little bit with any kind of motion discomfort for a fraction of people who use the device. But it does require more power now, so you will have to plug it into the wall. It won't run on anyone's system straight out of USB-C.
Yeah, which was really only for mobile users, I think. It was going to be convenient, but USB-C power output was going to vary between motherboards and vary between your front panel connectors anyway. So plugged in was still going to be the best way to go. And then they also announced a new G2 concept called the Omni concept. This is straight up B2B, basically not for consumers. It's probably going to be very expensive, but eye tracking as another input metric that developers can tap into, as well as heart rate detector
and facial expression.
So a camera system for your mouth, essentially detecting your smiles. It's expensive hardware. These are mostly for training purposes, for people who are doing simulations that need that type of data collected for eye tracking, and not anything that's going to impact you or me or when playing video games in the future in VR.
It's for the surveillance state. That's what it's for.
I mean, you're going to put on the headset yourself. You've opted in, right? And of course, the Quest comes out in a week and a half now. Is it even that? 2 weeks almost. 2 weeks. October 13th. That's a Tuesday.
And weird day. They're already showing up in stores. Like you can see people with friends at Target. They got the boxes open. They see so they're shipping them all over. They have them already on shelves in Japan.
In the display cases.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I guess some Best Buys are already setting up the kiosks. So. Yeah, they're stocking up the stores before launch day well enough.
That's such an interesting thing, because those in-store kiosks, like in-store traffic is not going to be the same this year. as it was in any year past, in the world of consumer electronics. And yet they're investing in it. I'm sure Best Buy is charging a lower rate.
What I definitely want to do right now is go into a store and put on a headset that other people have been wearing before me.
Right, exactly. So the money's there in terms of the investment, but it's going to largely be online orders. And right now, maybe it's a testament to their supply chain or the way they've planned out pre-orders. But you can order any either of the models on a place like Amazon or Best Buy and still get it on launch day. So they do not have the shortages that the next gen consoles do, which is something that last thing I'm gonna end this show with is, Dan, what's the deal with the new consoles?
that is a big question. Where to begin? I did manage to get pre-orders. I guess we do have the IGN does have a not quite final like pre-production version of a Series X that we're working with in a preview capacity. You can check out some of Ryan McCaffrey's coverage of that on the site right now. But I think that's about all I can say about it at the moment. I don't want to cross any lines there because I haven't read that embargo to the down to the letter. I think we still don't know when we're getting review units. We don't know how many we're getting from either console. So it is kind of coming down to the wire as far as the planning on the Microsoft and Sony side for when those are going out. But they don't seem panicked yet, so we aren't panicked. I'm pretty confident we'll be able to get our hands on some consoles to be able to do reviews on them. There actually aren't that many games where you actually absolutely need a next gen console to review them coming up. There's Demon's Souls. There's a couple other Sony ones I can't remember off the top of my head. There's the All-Star Destruction Derby one. And
do you not need it for Miles?
No, you don't. It's coming out on PS4. And I had it for a second. Oh, it's like the Sackboy Adventure one. So it's just, I think it's just those three games where you actually need a PS5 to play it. Everything on Xbox will run on both the previous Xbox One consoles and a PC. So they don't really have a launch lineup anyway. So I'm not panicked. I'll put it that way.
Very exciting. So much uncertainty.
Yep.
People will be curious.
Yeah, this will be my second time doing a console launch thing at IGN. I started the year that the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One came out in 2013. It's definitely different this time because we're not freaking out about how are we going to review all these games that are coming out only on these consoles, which is kind of a relief, but also I think there's less of a attempt to make a big splash with a big launch lineup.
Yeah, but again, people are still going to want to see the video capture. They're still going to want to see the differences. The curiosity,
absolutely.
The appetite is still there for the game consoles.
Oh yeah, it's a huge appetite. I think the challenging thing is going to be, how are we going to show anybody what these games look like at 120 frames a second? We can't even put HDR video on YouTube. So it's like a lot of it is going to have to be, we're going to have to be creative about how to convey what these look like without being able to really show people what they look like, because they won't see them in person.
What's the highest frame rate YouTube supports?
For which one? For your YouTube? I'm not sure actually, but I think it's 60.
Yeah.
I know it's not 120.
60. Yeah. Files get quite big at that size. Welcome to the problem that people covering VR have had for years.
Yeah. Plus, when you're uploading 4K video to the internet, like you're by nature, it's compressing it, and you're going to lose some of the detail. Like we used to do graphics comparisons between consoles, but now we kind of and PC, but we kind of lost the benefit of doing that, because the difference between what a game looks like on Xbox Series X versus PlayStation 5, running at 4K or close to it, or upscaled from close to it, like it's not going to be really perceptible, especially when you're looking at a compressed YouTube video. So we'll find ways to compare them, but it's not going to be the same old way.
Yeah, well, that's why there's still the website and uncompressed PNGs popped in for the nitty-gritty details
and written reviews, words to read.
Wow, Wow.
We still do those.
And you can find that and Dan, your other work at IGN.com or follow you online. Are you still on Twitter? What is it? Still nowhere, Dan?
No, I'm still at Dan Stapleton.
Dan Stapleton. You're Dan Stapleton.
I've always been on there on Twitter. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dan, for joining us this week. Any other shout outs you want to give?
I think we've talked about most of the stuff we're working on. I guess by now you'll also have our Crash Bandicoot 4 review up, which is also reviewing very well.
Very cool. Go ahead and read their Squadron review. You can watch our review later on today when that gets uploaded. And I think we're done with the show. A little over an hour. Thank you again, Dan, for joining us. This week we have an outro created by Great Job. Great Job's done a really great job. Username Great Job is doing a great job with this. We're still taking outro submissions and theme song submissions. If you want to create a theme song, you can upload it to SoundCloud. Email to me, norman@tested.com, or send it over DM on Twitter, and we'll play it in a future episode. But until then, Jeremy and I, and maybe Kishore, we'll see you next time. And Dan, thank you again. We'll have to have you on in a future episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great to hang out with you guys.
Yeah,
been a while.
It has been a while. Years and years. All right, here goes the outro. I haven't listened to it, so hope it's safe for work.
Hi there, I didn't see you. Tested.
Can I just tell you the other day, we finally got a Wii, and my son discovered Mario Kart just a few months ago. And the other day he was like, Dad, I've gotten good at this game. You got to play with me.
Yeah.
And then I kind of put him in his place.
Are you already good at that game?
I mean, I was fine. Mm-hmm. I was certainly better than my 7-year-old was, especially when he started talking crap to me.
Yeah. See, those games, they give those kids a false sense of achievement.
Yeah. And then I was like, you're not even drifting. let's get...
An oldie and a goodie. All right, we'll see you next week. Bye.